floor plot maps in Tableau to explore the current and future rates of adoption of electric vehicles throughout the world. So adoption of electric vehicles, like any innovation, has a number of different factors to it. Initially, we can consider, like any innovation, following the normal adoption curve. At the beginning of time, which I believe we're in now, adoption of this innovation is driven by categories of people that are called innovators and early adopters, which account for maybe 20% of the overall demand that you would see. Some other factors that go into the adoption of electric vehicles are the price of gasoline at any point in time versus what electric power or the payback could be, as well as government subsidies and the general state of infrastructure, particularly charging capabilities in any one country. I want to take a quick overview of the state of the world as far as the number of electric vehicles per 100,000 residents for countries throughout the world, or the countries that we have data on today. The main takeaway from what we see here is that, for the most part, all of the developed nations that have electric vehicle capabilities are all on about the same magnitude of adoption rate. And this is true except for one country. As we zoom in here on the European continent, Norway stands out for being really head and shoulders above the rest of the world in the adoption of electric vehicles. And this disparity has a few factors that I found interesting. When I first dove into this data, I expected to find kind of relatively small differences between countries, especially now, and wanted to highlight kind of differences later down the road. But Norway obviously stood out as an outlier here. So in the country of Norway, the country, as most Scandinavian countries do, has a higher than average population that would consider themselves environmentally conscious. But in fact, when you look at some of the research, the greatest motivation for Norwegians to buy electric vehicles is an economic one. Up to 64% say the biggest reason for purchasing was, their biggest purchasing reason was an economic one. So Norway has also, from a governmental and from a legislative and regulation standpoint, has exempted the value-added tax that's common throughout Europe for electric vehicle purchases. And this is huge on a vehicle, because on a normal gasoline-powered vehicle, it would be up to 25% of the purchase price. Other benefits that are seen in Norway for electric vehicle purchases are things like reduced fees and the use of bus lanes for electric vehicles. As well, the government has supported infrastructure improvements to support electric cars. So throughout the country of Norway, many different charging stations are available, up to 1,400 in the city of Oslo alone, as well with quick recharges, which is seen as one of the downsides of electric vehicles. So these charging stations are capable of charging a vehicle in as little as a half an hour. So if we step back to the world view in 2015 for electric vehicles per 100,000 residents, what I want to try to highlight is, as some of the experts look forward in the next 10 years as far as where electric vehicles are going to take off, you can really see, again, it's going to be driven by governmental, I guess, enthusiasm for electric vehicles and where people see the markets going. So as we look ahead in 2025, the main things I want to highlight here are, in terms of the U.S., where we're at now, really getting leapfrogged by much of the globe. China in particular, which was less than half of the United States in the electric vehicles per 100,000 residents in 2015, is now over double that in 2025. Japan, again, a huge number, an order of magnitude larger than the United States. And then when you look at the European continent, again, a step change compared to 2015. And this is really driven by, again, regulations. We've seen in the last year or so various countries in Europe coming out with future-looking statements about banning the use of petrol-powered vehicles by 2030, 2050, really depending on the country. But again, looking forward, these countries don't see a long-term future for petrol-powered vehicles in their countries, and this is really what's driving these forecasts of the future for the number of electric vehicles in these countries. And again, we can contrast that with the U.S. as well. In recent years, there's been limited investments in nationwide infrastructure for electric vehicles. Really, the growth in electric vehicles has been driven by home charging. And again, from a national standpoint, the appetite for regulation or a governmental body to step in and try to drive this change is not there. So I think the predictions that we're seeing here are really going to be realized here in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this this quick presentation using Tableau to illustrate these changes. And I hope, like me, looking at this data, you want to dive in and, I guess, take a look at some of the stories behind some of these other individual country changes. Thanks, and have a great day.